Hello, so as you can probably see, I've cheated a little bit. I've laid out my journal page that I think I'm going to create before I start the video. It just gave me a little bit of an idea where I wanted to be going with it, just to save you waiting while I decide and twiddling your thumbs. It may not end up like this, and it is just a rough sort of layout, but I tend to do this mostly because then it gives me a basis to work on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift everything off. There is a lot of different elements. To put them over there in more or less the places that they were, and show what we'll be working in. This is one of they call them scrapbooks. I don't think they're really that suitable for scrapbooks because you wouldn't get a lot of dimension in here without running out of pages and spine. They're a craft card, and I tend to, so that I can put a bit more weight and a few more mediums on them, I tend to glue pages together. So I possibly will do this as a title page later when I've got a bit further into the book. So I've glued the first two pages together, and I'm not going to work on them. I'm going to work on the next two pages. And I've decided that I'm going to swizzle it round, have the spine at the top, and have it so I work like this. So all my pages, the top will be at the spine. I've glued two pages together here. What I'm going to do, because I want to add some ink and maybe some gesso, I'm going to pop a sheet of printer paper just behind the page so it doesn't matter, it won't go on the rest of the pages once I start working. Gesso, which I use quite a lot. This is PBO Studio Acrylics Gesso. If you put a medium sort of like something like distress ink, distress oxides, anything like that on your page first, and don't dry it, your gesso when applied over the top will soak some of the colour up, and that's the look that I want. So I'm going to just apply, and this is only very roughly, some gesso just across here. This is just with a makeup sponge. I'm also going to do a little bit of inking just around the edges before I start, so it'll be easier doing it before I start. So I've got it all the way around the edges, and then I've got a band here. Makeup sponge is shedding. Now, you probably won't see a lot of this, but I don't mind that. It's just my basis to start with. I think I'm going to do a little bit of stamping just on a couple of the edges. Let's see, what shall we use? I think we'll use our favourite text, an indigo blue text stamp. I'm rather cluttered today, I'm not normally like this. And just with black archival ink, I'm just going to go at the top, just coming down a little bit. Oh, I've got ink on the corner of my stamp, how annoying. There we are, yeah. Put my ink away. So, I'm just going to get a little bit, I've got some waste paper here. Just going to put a little bit of gesso on my waste paper, scrap paper, and then get a dry brush. I'll do it on here so you can see. Pick up a little bit of the gesso, but I'm almost going to get rid of it onto my scrap paper, and then I'm just going to brush it across lightly. It just gives the page a little bit of texture, but without completely covering it up. Don't put too much gesso on your brush, whatever you do, else it will be too thick. And I'm just going to come in at the edges. All the way along. Just so it gives it a shabby sort of effect. And when you've nearly got rid of all your gesso on your brush, you can go up a bit further. A bit more at the edges so it balances out. I've got the majority in this centre bit here, which is where most of my grouping will be. Just need a bit more up there. You can guarantee when I do this I'll get a big blob. That's it, that's a bit more up there. Quite like this effect here where I've got a little bit more across the corner, so I'm concentrating on that corner to make it balance the other. And then I'll do a little bit more here. Start with a little bit and work up. You can always add more, but you can't take it away. That's it, that's covered up my mistake there where I had a little bit of stamping that I didn't want. So there we are. So we've got a little bit more texture going on to the kraft card base. It's just got a little bit more interest. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to overdo it. I'll brush in the water and I'll get rid of my gesso and then I don't put my elbow in it. Alright, so I think, yeah, that should do. I don't think I'm going to do any more wet mediums, but I'll leave my paper in place. And then it's just a case of building up your layout. I have this quite modern dotty paper. I quite like it, but I wanted it to tie in with the rest of my elements that I'm using, which is quite a lot of this pink masterboard, and then I've got some book pages, antique book pages, I've got some tea dyed paper, I've got some squared grid paper that I've tea stained, and it was actually the spine of a book that I tea stained the whole book and then just cut the pages out, so it's got a bit of texture on it. I've got all sorts of bits and pieces, but I wanted to show you how I turned that into something a little bit more subtle. All I did, and I'll do it on top of here, I've got my brown ink pad, and because this is brown already, you don't see that I'm adding brown to it, but it just dulls that pink down to a little bit more subtle colour. If you did a different sort of colour. I'll do it on one of these bits of masterboard so you can see. Because there's more white, you would see it would dull the white down, and it would make that more subtle colour. A bit more ink. So basically you're just knocking back the colour a little bit. Once I'd done that, I then used my script stamp that I've used on my page, this indigo blue one, in black, and I just stamped over the top. So I'll do a little bit on here so you can see. So you see, it makes it a lot more vintagey looking. It's not completely vintage, but it just makes it a little bit more subtle. It ties in a lot more. So we'll get rid of that bit and put our protective paper back in, and we'll start to build our layout. I've got this, which I thought would go across my page, and I'm going to rip the edges because I don't want nice neat edges, and then I'll ink those. Ink all the way around just so it blends in. And you can see that I will cover most of this up, but it gives me something to build on. Let's see. This was part of the magazine that I thought I would use, and again I'm just going to rip the ends off because I don't particularly want nice neat ends. So I thought that would go underneath here, maybe a bit further down. So I've got quite a lot to go on. I like this number and I like the date to be showing. This is my grid paper, which has been tea stained. I've scrunched it up in a ball, opened it out so it's more or less straight, and then added a bit more ink to it just to highlight the creases and everything. So even your waste you can use. Don't think I particularly want that all the way across. I'll probably go to about there. I'll keep these little bits because I might use those in the future. You can always tuck little bits here and there. So I think I'll have that probably there. I've got this. It's a copy of a vintage photograph, and it's quite a nice scale to go on here. I've got some tea stained paper, and this is part of one of my jelly prints. I wanted to include some pink so it wasn't all just so beige and brown, and I think possibly she'll go maybe there. Something like that. She might go a bit further over actually. So I'm not bothered about seeing what the magazine was called. This is part of the Punch magazine. So I'm just going to pop that just behind for another layer. I've got, now this is, if I put it on there you can probably see what it was. I used to do photography. And I used to do a lot of quite graphic images like umbrellas with the spokes, and the umbrella would be the colours of the rainbow. So it's quite a simple image, but I've got a lot, and I don't do photography anymore. I've got prints of most of them, they're just lying about, so I quite like just tucking something like that behind because it tells a story. It's a little bit like She's a film star or a star of stage, and it's just her story. I've got some stamps. I chose these because they tie in with the colours. So I might put one of those there. Maybe one up there, I'll see. I don't know about that one, I'm not sure. I could pop it down here, because sometimes you don't actually have to see everything. That's quite nice there. I've got a little bit of, this is printed vellum. Well, it's actually tracing paper that I put through my printer. It's just from the works. It was a book of tracing paper. And I had some old invoices from the 1950s which I'd bought. They aren't copyrighted because they're just invoices. So I photocopied them onto the tracing paper in my inkjet printer. And that's quite nice for just tucking in. I've just torn a little bit, and I'd probably just tuck it behind there. With vellum, you've got to either tuck it behind things or layer it up so that the glue doesn't show, because glue always shows on vellum. I've got this piece of masterboard. I may put that underneath everything. I'll see. I've also got a vintage postcard just from a scrapbook page. I might tuck that just coming out there. I don't know. No, I think I'll leave it at that. So all I need to do now is glue everything down. I've done her, and her layer's quite haphazard. So I think what I'll do is I'll glue her down first. I've inked the edges of this. This is just on normal copier paper. And I've inked the edges just with vintage photo. I'm not going to put any foam pads because this is in one of these books. I don't want too much dimension, unless the book will get just so ridiculously fat that I won't be able to close it. So again, on an angle. So I need some glue under here so that that picks up that. So that's there. I'll set that aside just for a moment. I'm going to stick that postage stamp on there, and then it is in place. And I don't forget where it's going. As with the vellum, I will have to stick some of this behind because the glue will show through the negative strip, obviously. I'll move that out of the way for a moment, and that, and I'll work on these layers. Now this is double-sided tape, so that's nice and easy. I just peel the back off. So she's struggling to get the double-sided tape layer off. I'm sure you all have this problem as well. It fights back. It's possibly been in the sun too long and it's got warm. So that's got double-sided tape on the back of there. And I think I was going about there. So that will pick that piece of paper up. And then if I put some glue on there. I can put that down. That will pick that up. I can then just go along here. Glue that down, and that is our first layer. I'll put that in later, so I've got a few little bits to pop in later. Don't think I want this on there. No, it's too much. I want her there. Don't normally have things central on a page, but when I've got this poking out from there, I want to still be able to see my stamp. So I think we'll go there. So if I stick this there, and then here, all over the back of here, this will also help to glue the film strip down, the negative strip down. You see, it's got lots of layers, but it's fairly flat, so the book will still open and close and be workable. Now I think I'm going to have that stamp just under there, because it's got our present Queen on, so it's the wrong date for this, which is 1913. This might well be this stamp, but we don't know because that's not. It's a stamp from the Netherlands, so we don't know what date that is. Right. So that's under there, and then a little bit underneath the stamp to stick it down. Yeah. I might have to put something quite heavy on there. Oh, I forgot my little guarantee bit. Cut this down, it might just tuck underneath there. Things are fighting back today. No, I don't want guarantee to show. I should have stuck this in before. Right, so I'm going to go just underneath there. And because it's vellum, it needs to be underneath, or else we'll see the glue. There we are. Don't think we really need that in. I think it's too heavy. Ah, I have a part one. Now that might work. Yes. I like that. So that one, because I haven't stuck the top part of this film strip down, can just go in there. Stay. Now you remember we had these little bits which we kept. If I wanted to, I could stick those as if they're coming out from various places. I don't think I really might have that one there. If I can get the double-sided tape's cooperating this time. So I'll have that just coming out from there. So sometimes you can make things look as if there is a long length of something, but it's only little scraps like this. So what else did we have? I've got a couple of end bits of the paper from the Punch magazine. I like little details like this, just added in. Yeah, that one just go in there. There we are. So we look like we've got lots and lots of layers, which we haven't actually got as many layers as it looks like. So that is, and because I haven't gone right to the edge with the glue, these corners can turn up a little bit. All the corners can turn up, which makes it look more textural. But all this glue underneath here will stick the things down which are transparent. So if I take that away, you will see that is our finished journal page. Quite simple, quite quick, but quite pretty. And the gesso just adds a little bit of age and a little bit more interest rather than just a plain brown page. So you've seen the version in the craft coloured book, which is it open. This one, which tells a little bit of a story about this lady who could be a film star or a stage and screen star. I think it was possibly before films, so possibly a stage star. This one is in a dark one in this book, which has black pages. So I've created a similar thing, gessoed the page again just to make it less solid and dark, and added a sort of visual texture, and then I've inked on the top again in brown, done some stamping and layered up my individual elements. I've got the film strip again. This one tells a bit of a story. This young chap's going on a journey, he's sent a postcard, he's set off from England, he's possibly going to Canada. There's no guarantee where he's going to end up. There's arrival. This is just a little square of craft card. It's got a question mark die cut out of it. It was from a book at the works, and I've just backed it with some book pages, and it says arrival, which fits in with his journey, and he might take some pictures on his way, who knows. So that's another idea, using a different background but a similar sort of book.